We all have now the exception to section 300 in front of us. Anyone who has it can read exception 2. Okay, before we start the other exceptions, do you have any questions on exception 1? Somebody tell me what are the ingredients? What are the essential elements for applying exception 1? Anyone need a quick answer?
Man, there are total 6 elements for that.
Hmm.
So first one is deceased must have given provocation to accused. Provocation must be grave. Provocation must be sudden. Offender by reason of said provocation shall be deprived of self-control. He should have killed the deceased during the continuance of deprivation of power of self-control. The offender must have caused the death of a person who gave provocation or that of any other person by mistake or accident.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
And the provisos?
Provisions too. The first provision is
And
that
it must not have been given. All the three have to be also mentioned. No?
first of all, it is voluntarily provoked. It is not sought or voluntarily provoked by offender
Mm-hmm.
or as an excuse for killing or doing harm to another person. So,
Right.
and second was by obedience of law, like in the public servants case. And
Mm-hmm.
the third one was right of private defense in the private defense of one person.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
So great. That's a good thing. And we said that it's a question of fact always, whether the circumstances were sufficient to give provocation to the person who was provoked. Was not merely because a person has been provoked and has committed the act during the while deprived the power of self-control is not at all is not the only thing, but the provocation should be the person should be provoked in the circumstances in which a reasonable person is provoked. So if you are unreasonable and you're still provoked, that will not work. Okay, exception 2. Who will read exception 2 to section 500, 300?
I'll read. Culpable homicide is not
Yeah.
murder if the offender, in the exercise in good faith of the right of private defense of person or property, exceeds the power given to him by law and causes the death of a person against whom he is exercising such right of defense without premeditation and without any intention of doing more harm than is necessary for the purpose of such defense. Illustration.
Mm-hmm.
Z attempts to horsewhip A, not in such a manner as to cause grievous hurt to A. A draws out a pistol. Z persists in the assault. A, believing in good faith that he can by no other means prevent himself from being horsewhipped, shoots Z dead. A has not committed murder but only culpable homicide.
So we will return to this exception once we have also looked at the right to private defense. But then it makes more sense. For exercising right to private defense, what is required is that there should be imminent danger. You can exercise your right to protect yourself, to defend yourself, property, blah, blah, blah. And it should be using proportionate force. So in this illustration, it's an example where proportionate force has not been used, disproportionate force has been used. And therefore, they're saying that he has not committed murder because if he has used proportionate force, then no liability. If the apprehension was that he will get killed, he could have killed and would not come here. But if the danger there section which lists out the circumstances in which the protection, the self-defense section can be to the extent of causing death. So if the circumstance is not that, so that's one scenario. The other scenario is suppose that I was in a room and an intruder came and I'm apprehending rape. I throw a paperweight on him. It strikes him on the head and he faints. Then I go and pick up a knife and stab him. I'm in such a state of panic. I do that. Then whether exception 2 will apply. And because we're not yet looked at that scenario, that when your right comes to an end, it comes to an end when the apprehension of danger comes to an end. So it's very much possible to argue that when the man fainted, I was now safe. And therefore, when I exercised that right, I was exercising a right when the right was not available. Because the right is available of private defense as long as the apprehension of danger continues. So if the man has fainted, and I still exercise my right in thinking that I am I'm still at risk, then it is not exceeding, it is exercising a right when the right did not exist. So if that happens, then is it possible for you to say a culpable homicide not by reference to the exception, but by reference to clause 4, reason, no, I have done it with an excuse. I thought that the apprehension still continued, and therefore when I gave him stab wounds, I was doing inherently dangerous activity as was likely to cause death, but with an excuse, due to an excuse. So there, the section may go somewhere else. It will not fall here if the right has ceased and you still continue to use it. The right, the exception 2 applies only when the right still exists. Suppose the intruders came to your house and you apprehended the coity and murder and rape, anything would have happened. So you fired from your gun. One person got injured, he fell down, and others ran away. You now fire at those people who are running away. It is not exceeding the right to private defense. It is because once they are retreating, you don't have any danger anymore. So therefore, one has to be clear that when you're talking exception 1, we're talking about circumstances where the right existed, but the amount of force used was more than required. Exception 3, who will read?
May
Yes,
Then
Divakar.
culpable homicide is not murder if the offender, being a public servant or aiding a public servant, acting for the advancement of public justice, exceeds the power given to him by law, and causes death by doing an act which he, in good faith, believed to be lawful and necessary for the due discharge of his duty as such public servant, and without ill will towards the person whose death is caused.
So this will also make the murder into culpable homicide. We have read the word good faith in both exception 2 and exception 3. Shall we quickly look at the definition of good faith?
Good faith. Nothing is said to be done or believed in good faith, which is done or believed without due care and attention.
So when we're saying good faith, it is not my genuine belief, but it should come out from proper care and attention. We must be very careful when we are saying that I'm acting in good faith. If I'm negligent, I'm reckless, I will not qualify as a good faith. Though on the spur of the moment, I might have thought so. So when it says, we have already looked at the definition of public servant or a person aiding the public servant. So a person has come to arrest a proclaimed offender, for example. So you have the right to arrest that person. You have the warrant and somebody else has told you where it is, so he's kind of taking you there. At that point of time, the proclaimed offender is trying to run away. And therefore, the police officer fires at him and kills. And when he fires, he was thinking that he's firing at his feet, or he's kind of trying to fire on the side of the person, believing in good faith that when I fire, this person will stop. But instead of it doesn't stop. then he has, uh, and all this is doing, he causes death by doing an act which, in good faith, he believes to be lawful and necessary for the due discharge of his duty as such public servant. So, if he has exceeded power, he has still not, suppose there is a mob and it is going to lynch somebody, and in order to prevent that, he does lathi charge, he does firing at the mob which was going for lynching of a woman suspected of being a witch. He could have done it with lesser force, but he used more force than required. Exception is attracted. So what would you think about whether this exception will apply? The senior officer, police officer, said, okay, do anything what you need to get his confession or get some information out from the person who has been arrested for commission of some serious offense. So the junior officer of the police gives him third degree torture and the person dies. Whether the police officer who has actually given the torture because of the direction of the senior, can that person take the defense of exception 3?
No, because
Why
it
not?
was beyond his power. I mean, there are some of the guidelines before torturing any person to third degree. Police can't like
He
to get.
believed, listen, there are two sets of people involved. One is the senior police officer who did not do the torture, but who asked the younger one to do the torture. And the younger one did the torture, believing that he is bound by his position of being the subordinate to follow the orders of his senior. Can we say that he has acted within the exception and the periphery of exception 3?
I think no, ma'am, because that's also against the Fundamental Rights Article 20.
He's just doing his duty, so he won't be liable for it. But the policeman who instructed him to tell him that do anything you want to get the information, it was implied that he can take the third
Yeah, no,
degree.
we are in this question not concerned with what will be the responsibility of the senior officer. We are talking about this junior officer who has obeyed the directions of the senior. So in that
Ma'am, I
case,
think
what
he'll
you
be
say?
liable. Ma'am, I
What
think
is
he'll be liable
why?
because
He's not. Ma'am,
he didn't
exception will
follow
not
due
apply.
care, ma'am. Due care has to be followed.
Because we have to say good faith. Good faith is an important qualification there. So we know any police officer know that third degree methods are illegal as a starting point. Nobody, no junior is obligated to follow illegal orders of the senior. And therefore, when he acts and he does this torture, he cannot take the shield that I was doing something assisting my senior, because it has to be also done in good faith. Sandeep, you had a question? Your hand is up.
No, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, I have a
Clear?
question.
Who is this?
Ma'am,
Shakil. Yeah.
Shakib. मैम
Yes,
इन
Shakil.
एक्सेप्शन 3 मैम वी सीन इन मूवीज जहां पर पुलिस की एंट्री होती है एंड दे शूट द पर्सन विलन ताकि वो किसी और को ना मार दे मैम व्हाट ऑफेंस डज इट अमाउंट टू बिकॉज वी सीन दैट द विलन इज किल्ड but the policeman does not have any intention to either shoot on his hand or on his leg. So ma'am, how do we see that kind of
If
situation?
the villain is trying to shoot the heroine, they can straight away shoot him dead. They don't need to do it on his legs or anything. But that's a right given by Section 96. That if there is an apprehension of causing death, you can kill that person. You can yourself kill that woman. Can also kill her. The policeman can kill her. Anybody can kill her. Not her. Kill the villain. So if there is apprehension of death, let's look at very quickly 96. But just for our clarity purpose.
So, ma'am, it all comes under the scope of private defense.
Yes. When the right of private defense of the body extends to causing death. First, such an assault as may reasonably cause the apprehension that death will otherwise be the consequence. Second, an assault as may reasonably cause the apprehension that grievous hurt will otherwise be the consequence. Third, assault with the intention of committing rape, assault with the intention of gratifying unnatural lust. Fifth, an assault with the intention of kidnapping and abduction. Sixth, assault with the intention of wrongfully confining a person under circumstances which may reasonably cause him to apprehend that he will be unable to have recourse to the public authorities for his release. Seven, an act of throwing or administering acid or an attempt to throw or administer acid which may reasonably cause the apprehension that grievous hurt will otherwise be the consequence. So these are the 7 circumstances listed in which you don't have to aim at anything else excepting you can, if you want to kill, you can kill. There's no liability for that killing. But suppose a man says, and we'll return to this again when we're examining private defense in greater details. So what we are saying here is that when the person, if suppose the officer directs the junior to do fake encounter, that to pretend that he was running away and shoot him at the back. Complete simple murder. These are not in the exception category because none of it is done in good faith, not with due care and attention, not a legal act. So if it's an illegal act, it will not come in the category of good faith. So the police officer who do the illegal killings, in whether by custodial torture or custodial killing or through fake encounters, this exception does not apply to them. It applies to only when they are acting in good faith. But on the spur of the moment, they miscalculated as to what should they have done on that state of mind. Because when we say, and also in case of even private defense, the statements coming to the court is that we do not evaluate or assess their actions in golden scales. Golden scale, when 1 gram of gold will make a lot of difference, or a half gram of gold will, 1/10 of a gram will also make a lot of difference. So gold, when you weigh gold, it is different than you weigh vegetables. Vegetable wala will also give you a little more than what is actually required. Gold person, the goldsmith will never give you even one small portion of a gram more than that. So it said that it has to be not weighed in golden scales, but one has to look at the whole circumstance as to what was the state of mind of the person who reacted. So given all that, but the basic thing is that it has to be in the circumstance in which there was good faith. Genuinely, the officer believed, public servant believed that this is essential for the discharge of their duty. But when you look at the circumstance, it seems that they have exceeded. They have used more force, which has resulted in death than they should have. We'll return to exception 4 first after we look at exception 5. Exception 5. Who will read? Jitendra had. Jiten, read.
Yes, ma'am. Exception 5. Culpable homicide is not murder when the person whose death is caused, being above the age of 18 years, suffers death or takes the risk of death with his own consent.
So when we
illustration.
Yeah. Read.
Illustration. A by instigation voluntarily causes Z, a person under 18 years of age, to commit suicide. Here, on account of Z's youth, he was incapable of giving consent to his death. A has therefore abetted murder.
So when A has died, no, Z. When Z dies, he certainly is not there for anything. He's dead already. But the person who, and he's done his voluntarily, but it has done is on the instigation of A, and therefore A is liable for abatement. So let's think of another example where a 17-year-old boy is suffering from terminal cancer, very, very ill, and he's in a lot of pain, or any other terminal disease he's suffering. And he says, kindly give me a lethal injection. The doctor gives him the lethal injection with his consent. he's not protected. He's not protected by exception 5 because a child of 17 is not capable of giving that consent. But suppose the person who is asking for the lethal injection is 25 years old, above the age of 18, 19, 20, 25, 50, whatever they, with above the age of minority, and he says, give me the lethal injection, the doctor gives that, or a family member gives that injection. The family member of the doctor will be liable for culpable homicide, even though it has been done with the consent of the person. We do not recognize euthanasia. We have now some developments, and we will look at that when we come to the offense of murder and the attempt to commit murder. So what we have in exception 5 is that with the consent also, and we call it euthanasia, when somebody is saying kill me because I'm in so miserable condition, and the other person does that. When they do it themselves without any instigation from somebody else, it is, and they survive, attempt to commit suicide. But if it is done by another person, that person, out of compassion, no harm wanting to be done, but only preventing that this child or this person is under so much pain, and therefore the person is really begging you to be relieved, or no, begging you to relieve him of the pain. You do that out of compassion, humanity. The law doesn't permit that. So that is what exception 5 is. Let's come back to exception 4, which is the exception of sudden fight. And there seem, the students get very confused between exception 1, which is causing death by grave and sudden provocation, and causing death in a sudden fight. And that's what Gapu Yadav, to some extent, explains as the difference between the two. So please, someone who is someone who will read exception 4 and the explanation. Garima, do you want to read?
May I?
Saurabh, yes.
Exception 4. Culpable homicide is not murder if it is committed without premeditation, in a sudden fight, in the heat of passion, upon a sudden quarrel, and without the offender having taken undue advantage or acted in a cruel or unusual manner. Explanation. It is immaterial in such cases which party offers the provocation or commits the first assault.
Can anyone think of an example from our newspapers in the recent past, or no, these days, which will fall into exception 1? Have you heard of road rage?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
What happens in road rage? What is the standard typical example of a road rage killing?
Two vehicles collide and then the sudden fight occurs and one beat other, the other beat. There is a fight and then that's the fight, and some causes grievous hurt or death also in some cases.
We have seen in Delhi, this road rage is one car got a little scratch, the owner will comes out and thrashes the other one also retaliates, and one of the two dies. The section very categorically says it does not matter who started, who gave the first blow, whether it was the car wala whose car got scratched or the scooter wala who was responsible for the scratch. Who gave the first blow doesn't matter. The fights are happening parking areas in the neighborhoods. What is required? How many ingredients we have now here? It should be this. When it is a sudden fight itself means it should be without premeditation. But this section re-emphasizes that it should be without premeditation. People should not have, suppose my car got scratched, I got into some arguments, etc. with the other person, and the other person went and called some more people and continued fighting with me. They premeditated. They knew where I live. They come in the evening to take badla. Students के साथ में हो जाता ना, one boy beat up the other. In the evening, the other boy stands up with his friends. तो कि ठीक है अब तुझे बताते हैं. So that's not all a sudden fight. These are all examples of premeditated fight. They have prepared themselves. So they are of course not preparing for fight even. Or they might be that okay, both the groups are कि ठीक है बच्चों वहां मिलियो शाम को देखेंगे. When both the groups say so, they come with their friends to fight with each other, whether a gang war kind of a scenario or just fights with two groups of students who have got some problem with each other. These are premeditated fights. So if somebody dies in those scenarios, exception will not be applicable. It has to be that suddenly something happened and it flared. It flared up to the extent that someone got killed. The person does not go free from liability, but the liability is lowered. The first one, we say that it has been committed without premeditation. The death has been caused without, the murder has been caused without premeditation in a sudden fight. So what is a fight?
Ma'am, more than a verbal things like coming into an action. Both
There
of them
should
are
be
beating.
there should be a physical action
Yes,
there.
ma'am.
So
Extension of
as long
verbal
as
force.
people are abusing each other, that only quarrel. So the fight is preceded by a quarrel. Quarrel
Ma'am,
then turns into physical fighting. Yes, Nisha.
ma'am, in a physical fight, does it require any physical injuries to be proven, or it could just be a slap from one person to another?
It can be a one slap to the other. The one person gave a slap, the other got angry, and then he killed the other. So suppose if that happens, that the car wala came out and gave a slap to the scooter wala. Now scooter wala gave him another slap. Then the car wala went to his car, took out his hockey, and beat him to death, or took out a cricket bat and gave him a couple of blows on the head, and the scooter wala died. Whether the exception will apply?
Ma'am, I think no.
Why not?
Because he acted in an unusual manner or like cruel. So
And
which
it wasn't
stated in the
proportional
last
to what
line.
he was getting.
Undue advantage, acted in a cruel or unusual manner. So the person is a cripple and you then chase him to death because you are fighting with that. So if you're taking undue advantage of the other person, you're acting in a cruel manner, then the exception doesn't apply. So what we are again coming to, so what are your ingredients? One, premeditation. Then it has to be fight. If it is merely quarrels, there was still no exchange was happening, and then one person takes out a gun and kills the other because he got so angry. Exception will not apply because there's no fight. Fight means that blows have been exchanged. The blow can be a slap, it can be fist, it can be whatever. No, it can be with both the parties have now taken out lathis. So blows can be physical or it can be with weapons. If both the parties have got weapons, both of them are fighting, then one of the person dies, it still is then not coming into cruel manner. But if one person is unarmed, the other side. No, go back to our Punaya, where this old man, 50 years old, was beaten by lathis. He was unarmed, he had nobody else, and then three people beat him up. So in that case, the possibility, but because in that case, the action was all unilateral. There was no fight from the man who was being beaten up. So therefore, that did not come here. But that's the kind of example that one person, suppose he had a lathi and then he fell down, the other still continued to beat him up. Then we will say cruel manner, undue advantage, he had already fallen down. So once the other person has become vulnerable, you still continue to use your force, then exception will be questionable. So first of all, we said without premeditation, sudden should be sudden, and then should be a fight, and then in the heat of passion. So the fight has led to rising of the passion. Then it says upon a sudden quarrel. So it means sudden quarrel preceded the fight, sudden fight, and without the offender having taken undue advantage or acted in a cruel or unusual manner. So without premeditation, one. Second one,
Sudden fight.
Sudden fight.
sudden fight preceded by a quarrel,
Heat of
then
passion, ma'am.
and it
Unusual
will
manner.
give rise to
Unusual.
heat of passion. And in the heat of passion,
Without
Undue
undue
advantage.
if that
advantage.
has taken place, so 5, then the person should not take undue advantage or must not have acted in a cruel or unusual manner. So total 7 ingredients have to be proved. If any one of them has gone missing, any one of them is not fulfilled, it will the exception will not be applicable. So now let's apply all this knowledge we
And
have to
should
Kapuya.
both the parties fight with same type of weaponry to not gain any unfair advantage?
These are the points of arguments, that one had a wooden lathi, the other one had a bhala. You will say, no, they were not doing this, no, they were not using the same manner. But what kind of injuries have been caused by the bhala? What kind of injuries have been caused by the lathi? All those questions of detailed facts will determine whether because when it has happened sudden fight, it's not that everybody would have wait, okay, I have one bhala, I also carry a bhala. It's a chance situation. In the chance situation, we do not know who will have what, but in what manner they have used it. So one is completely unarmed, and you are now using a bhala on that person in a sudden fight. You get so angry, acted in an undue advantage or acted in a cruel, unusual manner. This is not how you respond to a feeble man enters. Suppose no somebody, a beggar, is first was asking for money from outside. Then he opened the door and came inside. You got very angry. And you just gave him, you started beating him with how dare he entered your premise. This fan falls down and dies. Do you think exception 4 will be applicable, exception 1 will be applicable, or neither of the two will be applicable?
Ma'am, it was not a grave provocation. It was sudden, but it was not a grave provocation. So section 1 won't apply. Section 4 won't
Exception
apply.
1, 1.
Yeah, exception 1 won't apply. Exception 4 won't apply from the very beginning because it starts with a quarrel and the heat of passion. And there was no
There
quarrel
was there
taking
was no
chance at
quarrel, there was no quarrel, there was no fight, and therefore the question of other application of other category doesn't arise. It's not a question of that he was using. So your answer that exception 4 will not apply, your correct answer is what just Nirupam said, that there was no quarrel preceding, there was no fight. So therefore, we cannot, if suppose somebody says exception 4 will not apply because he has acted in a cruel manner, that's not the correct reasoning. You have to pick up the correct portion of the section to say because of which it will not apply. The question of examining whether the person has acted in an undue, had taken undue advantage, or whether he's acted in a cruel manner will arise only if there was a fight preceded by a quarrel. If that hasn't happened, we don't have to look into this ingredient. So when you are, the answer will be both. The point I'm making here is that it is not important that what is your answer. What is more important is what is your reason for the answer. So you pick up the answer in both cases is no, exception 4 will not apply. But your reason, if you pick up that it was taken undue advantage, the reason is not correct. And therefore, even though the answer is the same, the decision is the same, your answer is still not a good answer. So always try to find out what is the most crucial, what I call it as a micro ingredient. So macro question is whether exception 4 applies. Macro question is it murder? Macro question is exception 1 applicable. Micro question, which of these 7 ingredients is not satisfied? And these are going step by step. So first of all, was there a quarrel? If no quarrel, we do not ask the question, was there a fight? If there was a quarrel followed by fight, then we ask whether it was premeditated or not. Whether the quarrel was suppose the quarrel was the quarrel was premeditated, and it then turned out the people had come to fight that how could you park your car in my space? So they have come to fight with the person who has parked their car in your space. And then it escalated. You were not expecting actually that they will retaliate. You were expecting that it will happen differently. But the suddenness is of both the categories. Quarrel should be also sudden. But because people have gone to fight, not fight, they have gone to quarrel with the neighbor for doing the parking at a wrong place. Therefore, what followed, the sudden fight which followed, is not sufficient. Then your reason for saying exception 1 is not satisfied, exception 4 is not satisfied will be that because the quarrel was premeditated. If the quarrel was premeditated, then you don't go to ask question whether it was sudden fight. So fight certainly was sudden, but your first stage itself is not satisfied. And one has to apply each one of these stages, each one of the aspects to determine if you stop at one, an ingredient prior, you don't have to then look for examining all other ingredients also. So if the quarrel was sudden, escalated into a sudden fight, it was without premeditation, the parties have not acted in a cruel, unusual manner, then exception applies. So what is the difference? What are the circumstances in which exception 1 applies? What are the circumstances in exception 4 applies? We have to do a parallel table. What is here and what is here? In both of the scenarios, people have lost control to some extent. In one case, because of heat of passion. In the other case, because of the provocation. There also it should be sudden. Here also it should be sudden. Please share recording. I've already shared all your recordings till yesterday. So in this case, when you're looking at the comparative table, the most crucial evidence you should look for, whether the victim was participating in exchanging blows. If you find that the victim was also giving blows, whether feebly or otherwise, he was also participating in the exchange of blows pursuant to a quarrel, then we are in exception 4. If it's only one-sided, Nanavati got angry, he went and fought with whoever. So then it is Nanavati who is acting, and it is not a sudden, in Nanavati's case, not sudden quarrel because premeditated. He went there expecting trouble. So it can't be said that, no, that even if assuming that scuffle did happen, so scuffle had happened or fighting happened, but that was not sudden. From the Nanavati side, it may be sudden. It may be sudden on the side of Ahuja. It may be sudden on side of the Ahuja, but it was certainly not sudden on side of Nanavati. Yes, Shakib.
Ma'am, can we say still Nanavati took undue advantage because he carried pistol with him? So exception 4 won't apply?
No, in case of Nanavati, his case is not of a sudden fight, na? His case is of grave and sudden provocation.
Ma'am, assuming that, for instance, the defense argument is true, that it was a sudden quarrel without premeditation, it was a sudden fight, but still carrying a pistol.
No. Was it a sudden fight? Was he not expecting the fight?
He was expecting. Yes.
Then it's not a sudden fight even. So even as no शुरू में arguments हुआ, will you marry my wife? He said, will I marry everybody I sleep with? तो ये argument हो गया. उसमें फिर नानावती ने थप्पड़ लगाया, उसने भी थप्पड़ लगाया. But this whole point of the conversation was there that there will be argument. It's not a sudden quarrel.
So, ma'am, like in most of the cases in which grave weapons are used, for example, gun or something, we can't apply exception 4. Because if weapon is brought by one of the parties, that means the party already has an intention or intention.
No, not
or
necessarily.
The party was expecting a fight.
Tushar, not necessarily. People go carrying guns. You know, when you go to villages, a lot of people carry guns for their safety, not with the intention of attacking someone. When you carry a gun, for example, in a marriage party, you are doing it to show off. I've got gun. Rajputon mein bada hota hai, that will have guns. So in those kind of scenario, when you are firing gun in the air and then somebody got too drunk in the villages, in the marriage, then some kind of quarrel happened, then fight happened. One person used the gun, killed the other. So this will be a scenario where the use of the gun against a drunk man then your reason will be undue advantage. But it is not a case of premeditation. He was not expecting to have fight and quarrel and a thing. He had taken the gun for a different purpose. So merely because someone is carrying a gun is not necessarily indicative of premeditation. So it's always, but we always say all these categories are questions of facts. We need to examine the facts in detail, motivations of people to determine what actually was happening there. So what we are saying is that your crux will be in finding out whether the action of killing, what preceded that, what happened before that, and then what happened while the action was taking place. So certainly in case of sudden fight, so let's look at very quickly Gapu Yadav facts. Anyone who knows the Gapu Yadav facts?
Ma'am, he was Gappu Yadav. He was cutting some tree, and the owners of the family who had planted the tree, they went and argued that why are you cutting my tree? And quarrel and fight happened in which this man got killed.
Yeah. Let's start with the land. There's a land, piece of land, and two families are fighting that it belongs to me, it belongs to me. Then mediation happens and it is determined that the land belongs to family A. Family B members come and cut the tree. So family A objects, the land is ours, how can you cut the tree? So the family 2 says, our forefathers planted this tree. Trees are also very valuable property. So they said, no, our forefathers planted this tree, and therefore the tree belongs to the land might have belonged to you, it belonged to us. On this, the quarrel began, led to fighting, and one person dead. After the death, what happened? No, when not death, before the death, they tried to take him to the hospital also. When somebody fell down and is gasping for breath, then they tried to reach him to the hospital, but this man dies. So in these circumstances, whether it is exception 1 or exception 4.
There was no provocation at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just started with a quarrel, then became a fight. No premeditation at all led to the death of the other person. No cruelty or uh, uh, advantage whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
All fall under the section exception 4th.
Yeah, so let's look at Gapu Yadav, what the judges have said. You have the case law before you. Gapu Yadav. So in Gapu Yadav, what have they done? You look at paras. So these are the facts. Then you come to the para on, this is for me, page 2. So the judges say the question is about applicability to exception 4. That's the issue in this case. And then in the fourth, and because these are not numbered para and my page numbers are different, my page number is 129. So in this para beginning with saying the fourth exception to section 300, IPC covers acts done in a sudden fight. The said exception deals with a case of prosecution not covered by first exception, after which its place would have been more appropriate. So one is the general suggestion that the sequencing is wrong because these are similar and distinguishable, so therefore it should have been exception 2 rather than 4. The exception is found upon the same principle for both, in both cases there is absence of premeditation. And then the judges draw the distinction. But while in the case of exception 1, there is total deprivation of self-control, in exception 4, there is heat of passion which clouds the men's sober reason and urges them to deeds which they would not otherwise do. There is provocation in exception 1 as in exception 4 as in exception 1. But the injury done is not the direct consequence of that provocation. In exception 4, the provocation leads to arguments and then the fight. In exception 4, deals with cases in which, notwithstanding that a blow may have been struck or some provocation given in the origin of the dispute or in whatever way the quarrel may have originated, yet the subsequent conduct of both parties puts them in respect of guilt upon equal footing. But both of them are fighting now. A sudden fight implies mutual provocation, and blows on each side. The homicide committed is then clearly not traceable to unilateral provocation, nor in such cases could the whole blame be placed on one side. For if it were so, the exception more appropriately applicable would be exception 1. So if it is the primarily one party, one side which is acting due to provocation, then it is exception 1. There is no previous deliberation or determination to fight. A fight suddenly takes place for which both parties are more or less to be blamed. It may be that one of them starts it, but if the other had not aggravated it by his own conduct, it would not have taken the serious turn it did. There is then mutual provocation and aggravation, and it is difficult to apportion the share of blame which attaches to each fighter. The help of exception 4 can be invoked if death is caused A, without premeditation, 2, B, in a sudden fight, C, without the offenders having taken undue advantage or acted in a cruel or unusual manner, and D, the fight must have been with the person killed. Bring a case within exception 4, all the ingredients mentioned in it must be found. It is to be noted that fight occurring in section 4 of section 300, exception 4 to section 300, is not defined. But we know it takes two to fight, to make a fight. Heat of passion requires that there must be no time for the passions to cool down. And in this case, the party had worked themselves. Then they're applying this law to the given case. They worked themselves into a fury on account of the verbal altercation in the beginning. A fight is a combat between two and more persons, whether with or without weapon. It is not possible to enunciate any general rule as to what shall be deemed to be a sudden quarrel. It is a question of fact, and whether a quarrel is sudden or not must necessarily depend upon the proved facts of each case. For the application of exception 4, it is not sufficient to show that there was a sudden quarrel and there was no premeditation. It must further be shown that the offender has not taken undue advantage or acted in cruel or unusual manner. The expression undue advantage is used in the provisions means unfair advantage. So this is how they have explained the section. And with that, when we apply it to the various scenarios, so what we are looking for is that there should be a mutual exchange of arguments. So suppose in the sudden quarrel which happened because of the road accident, the road accident can take many shapes. So somebody suddenly, beats and one has fallen down. So the one who has fallen down now gets up and gets to the carman and starts fighting, gives him a slap that he was so careless. The fellow in the car comes out, tries to fight him back, and then the biker who had fallen down now kills him, getting very angry in the fight. Do you think the biker can take the exception of the help of exception 4?
Obviously, you can take it because a quarrel happened which turned into a fight. It was not premeditated. There was no instances of cruelty or unfair advantage. The actions took place in the sudden heat of passion, and in which the person got killed. So obviously, it is satisfying all the criterions.
Yeah, the example was more focused on the explanation, which says it is immaterial in such cases which party offers the provocation or commits the first assault. In my example, I said that the biker gave the first blow, then he is the one who killed. So the focus is on using the explanation that it is immaterial. So all the other facts which, as Nirupam has pointed out, correct. In addition, you will also say that the explanation very clearly said it does not matter who gave the first blow. So in this case, even though the biker gave the first blow, but that is not relevant. Relevant is it was sudden, there was a quarrel, there was a fight, he had not taken undue advantage. All the things which Nirupam said, But then you have to supplement it also with the explanation. Then it makes a complete answer to that question. So is that clear?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, can exception to
Ma'am, I have one
Was it?
doubt. Ma'am,
Who was speaking earlier for exception 2? I couldn't hear. The voice
Yeah,
was low.
ma'am, I was asking that can exception to act in this matter, because in exception to also they are saying there should be no mediation. Secondly, for private defense of person or property, as in this case it was clear that the property that the
Tushar, I think we'll hold on to exception 2 because that will become clearer to us once we have looked at the exception of private defense. Well, this one is only
okay,
exceeding the right. Huh? And in this
okay,
example which I gave, exception 2 is not attractive because exception 2 is talking about private defense, not of sudden fight.
ma'am, it was private defense, but it is written here the private defense of person or property. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was the land of
Of
that
your
person, ma'am.
person or somebody else's property. Okay, you are saying in Kapu Yadav.
Yes, ma'am, in Gappu Yadav, ma'am, because land was belonging to the other party, and the
Mhm.
other party was cutting the land. Oh, the
Yeah,
tree.
but no, that's a contentious category. No, when um, the so when um, partner family A hit family B who were cutting the tree or who had cut the tree already, if the tree had already been cut, what were they defending? The tree wasn't there. The tree was cut 3 days ago.
But when he was cutting the tree, they could have foreseen that that
At
a
that point
fight.
of time, they could have. Suppose, no, in private defense, suppose you and your mother were going and your mother had a purse and somebody came and snatched the purse and ran away. Second day, you found the same person having the purse, with him, and you tried to snatch that away. That's not a right of private defense. You cannot snatch the purse away even though it belongs to you and you know that it is yours. So there are circumstances in which you can exercise right of private defense, not just because it is your property. You cannot exercise the right.
Ma'am, I have a question. It might go a little off topic. Ma'am, is intention really required for Section 3 of murder sufficient that
For which?
it should be? Ma'am, Section 3 that it should be sufficient to kill the person.
Which section 3?
Ma'am, of
300
murder,
probably.
300 Section 3.
Thirdly, you mean there's no section 3.
Yes, ma'am. Thirdly, if it is
Intention to
done with
cause
the
injury. Intention to cause injury has to be there, not intention to cause death. If the intention to cause death is there, then firstly, if the
and
intention is to cause injury,
there are judgments in which the judge said that the intention is not really required.
Nirubam, the section itself on the face of it, the section itself says intention. So you must not have perhaps followed what was the context in which year was the judgment. And there's no judge who can say intention is not required for 300. Thirdly, I would want you to tell me the cases. No. I want you to bring out those cases with citations for us to see where is the judge saying why intention not required. They are only saying intention to kill is not required. They're not saying intention is not required. There's a difference between intention to kill, that certainly is not required under thirdly. Thirdly requires intention to cause injury.
Yes, ma'am, but intention is not required for sufficient in the ordinary course of nature to cause injury. It's an objective basis, ma'am.
Precisely, yeah, precisely. The intention, because if the intention was to cause such injury as is sufficient in the course of nature to cause death, then that is a
Then
case of intention to cause death.
Yeah, fall under
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah. Then it's firstly.
Ma'am, I have another doubt. Ma'am, in Kapoor or in Punaiya, Kapoor Singh also blows. Ma'am, in our case, ma'am, couldn't give so much data about the injury of Kapoor Singh, just like given in the Punaiya cases. So
It is
how
not
can
because of
Supreme Court?
the Supreme Court has given only that much. It's not that we have cut out the injuries. There's a short judgment, there are long judgments.
Yes, ma'am. But in Supreme Court, I think he gave the decision on the basis of that they have
No.
motive.
But No, in Kapoor Singh is a pre-Virsa Singh judgment, and that is an
Okay.
example whether knowledge that this is sufficient to cause death is also required for thirdly. And the judge said he must have known at least that he knew it was likely to cause death, even if he did not know it was sufficient to cause death. And that is what has changed since Virsa Singh. Virsa Singh says we will not look into the question whether he knew it was likely to or whether it was sufficient. That's not the question we ask. That is an objective inquiry. The medical will determine. The only thing we need to ask is, did you intend to cause the injury which has been found on the person of the deceased? That's the only question we ask you to determine by reference to your action. Have you given this intentional injury intentionally? This is the injury you wanted to cause? The answer is yes. We don't ask you anymore what were your intentions, what was your knowledge, what were your motive. We don't ask you all those questions to the accused person. Then the objective inquiry begins. Whether the injury intentionally given by the accused is sufficient in the ordinary course of nature to cause death. That is where the change happened from Kapoor Singh to Virsa Singh. In Kapoor Singh, they were still focusing on he must have known that this is at least likely to cause death. Therefore, the second part of 299 will apply. In Virsa Singh, that changed. They said, no, that is the moment we say that he should have known whether it is sufficient or not, then we are talking about firstly, that there was an intention to cause death. And especially in case of thirdly and 300, firstly. Because when it is likely to cause death, it still remains in 299. But the moment we say he has intentionally caused this injury and he knew that this was sufficient to cause death, then what is he wanting? He is intending to kill. That is firstly. Both cases, the conviction is for murder only. In both instances, the conviction is for murder only. But we have to learn to find out which is the most appropriate clause in the section. This is not that somebody who is held liable under firstly has got a different punishment or has got a different conviction. That's also murder. Thirdly is also murder. Punishment is the same under 302. So that doesn't matter where is the case falling in terms of liability, but in terms of learning the application of law. If there are 4 clauses, we should be able to identify clearly which ingredients of which clause are being satisfied or are not satisfied. So that is where the skill of lawyering comes in, that you should be able to clearly apply the legal provision to the facts of the case. So can we stop now for today?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, any more doubts you can ask tomorrow before the class, in the beginning, and then we will move on to discussing section 304A, rash and negligent act. We've got 2 cases in there, very interesting cases. One case where the judges said exception applicable. No, not exception. We're talking about rash and negligent act. So whether it was rash and negligent act, whether it was culpable homicide. So the distinction between in what cases it will become rash and negligent act, and I find the second case very interesting. Look at the details which the lawyer has brought on record in facts to say he was not negligent. He was not driving the bus rashly or negligently. And how do you know? There's a lot of conversations in the first also, Cherub and Gregory, that whether this was a case of rash or negligent act or was it a culpable homicide case. And that's where the skill of lawyering can persuade the judge to take one way or the other. We have got this category, we got assault, then we got hurt, grievous hurt. Grievous hurt resulting into death necessarily does not mean culpable homicide. So we need to now get more nuances into these borderline cases. Very serious injury has been caused, a man dies. Whether grievous hurt leading to death will automatically mean it's a culpable homicide. So we'll start looking at those aspects now. basic understanding of murder is there. Now we need to look at similar kind of offenses, which will your argument can convince the judge to say no, not here, but here. Sometime, not always. So please mark your attendance, and we meet tomorrow.
Thank you.
Please read your cases.
Thank you, ma'am.